All right. There goes the little flash saying we are good to go. I'm going to check the audio levels real fast. Testing, testing. All right, seems like that's going through. And do that real fast. Okay, well, today's episode is going to be a little bit shorter. I don't have anybody in my chat. And if I do have somebody in my chat, it's probably going to be an idiot. Okay, oh, and I need to stop that. I'm getting the echo because I was testing out my sound quality. And all right, it's a little distracting there. But there we go. Now I've got everything pulled up. I've got the chat there just in case somebody decides to join and actually has something relevant to say. So, based on the title card of today's topic, I did want to talk about AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I've talked about her previously on this channel, and now it has been confirmed by multiple sources, so I'm comfortable in saying that this is legitimate, and this is what is going on. Because I've talked about this in the past, that Alexandria had coaches that put her up to basically her entire policy, everything she pretty much stands for, is all determined by some group. So she's not acting of her own accord. She's just following basically the coaching and the everything as far as her entire political campaign. So, and Andrew Klavan was talking about this on his show, and I respect Andrew Klavan. I think he's an incredibly intelligent person, but I think he's wrong on this because he said, so what, that's politics as usual. And I'm going to disagree with him because there are people who decide to become a candidate and they get backing from their community. They start a grassroots movement. They start running. And then an organization comes along and says, okay, yeah, you kind of fit our bill. You seem like a good choice for that job. And then they run that candidate as the representative of their party. And yes, there are talking points. Yes, they have people who coach them on how to use social media. There's people who coach them on how to dress and then, how to style their hair and whether they need to do a press. But when they actually get into the Senate and when they actually get into whatever that they're campaigning for, there isn't a committee or there isn't a group of people that is still coaching them on every aspect of their job. Yes, they have a team of people around them, but there's nobody pulling their strings on a daily basis, or at least there shouldn't be. To the best of my knowledge, that's not the case with most politicians, which is why you will see them sidestepping party lines, or occasionally they'll okay, this is something I disagree with, and they'll vote against it based on principle, even if their party says one thing or the other. They are acting independently. But if the way that this is set up with Ocasio-Cortez, she is entirely in the pocket of the Justice Democrats. Okay, there's Sinister. So yeah, this is the video I linked to you a while ago. Andrew Klavan has confirmed this. Sargon of Akkad has confirmed this. I've seen other people talking about this, and they're like, yeah, that's exactly what happened. So I want to state why it's different in the case of Ocasio-Cortez and what's his name, Ilhan Omar.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them are in the pockets of the Justice Democrats. The other thing is, these are the same types of people who are complaining about, oh, we just got to get money out of politics. We got to get money out of politics. And they are supporting Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar. And I'm like, this is the definition of politics, or, of money in politics. The Justice Democrats, they financed everything. They had auditions for somebody to run as their candidate. They said, okay, we've got an open audition. You submit your profile. We'll interview you in order to be our candidate. And as soon as they pick their person, what is this? I'm getting somebody in my chat, but it's some random person just repeating nerd over and over again. Okay. So the Justice Democrats, they started a campaign, and they basically had an open call, like, hey, we need somebody who's going to run as our candidate. And they did an interview process. They, watched these videos of these submissions and all these other things. They picked somebody that they thought had star quality, had the ability to win and become their, and then they dictated everything that this person would do. Now, it's because Mr. Reagan, who's one of the people that, because I had heard other people talking about this and sort of thing, but he's the one who actually had the sources for what was going on and actually links to the videos where the Young Turks talk about this. So that's the other part of this equation, is the Young Turks are the ones who started the Justice Democrats. They bankrolled the Justice Democrats, and the Young Turks have several millions of dollars coming from foreign dictatorships. Okay. So this DJ guy or whatever, sorry, is in my chats, and he's like, yeah, no one is watching. Okay. So what? You're distracting. I'm going to ignore you in the pop-up chat. Okay. Sorry, what was that? So, yeah, so the Young Turks bankrolled this. And then if you look at the Young Turks, they're being funded by Al Jazeera, right? Hang on a second. I got to double check because I don't remember where is it. They're getting money from some funds. I know that this is public knowledge, stuff that they've admitted as far as their organization goes, and I'm trying to, I know it's, let's see. Yeah, I didn't have too much time to look up this before going on here, but that's not what I'm looking for. I don't know if Sinister can look this up for me. So I know they get millions of dollars from some foreign government. I want to say it's Al Jazeera, right? That's the yeah. Okay, yeah, there it is. Yeah, the Young Turks was actually sold to Al Jazeera, and Al Jazeera is it's from Qatar. Yeah, Qatar. That's the country I was thinking for. So yeah, Al Jazeera is a news corporation based out of Qatar. They own the Young Turks. They give them millions of dollars a year in financing, and the Young Turks are taking that financing and then using that to fund the Justice Democrats. The Justice Democrats are then buying a politician. They run the entire campaign. They have the entire policy laid out, and they audition to have somebody to be their mouthpiece, someone to take up their mantle, run with their policies on their dime. Now, other politicians, when you're running for an office, you decide, hey, I want to run for this office. And yes, you might get other people to back you up and things along those lines, but that's because they believe in your message. This is the other way around. And this may be something that is, but if you're looking for collusion with some foreign government trying to influence our politics. This is not even 6 degrees of separation. This is 3. Maybe, I guess, yes, 3 degrees, right? This is Ocasio-Cortez, the Justice Democrat, is connection 1. Justice Democrats to the Young Turks, connection 2, and then Young Turks to Al Jazeera, connection 3. This is a company based inside a foreign country, funding are then taking that funding a political party. That political party is then auditioning for people to become their candidate. And AOC, this is pretty obvious from all the interviews and all that sort of thing, has no idea what she's talking about when it comes to politics. Has no idea what she should or should not be voting for, has zero economic understanding. So my question right now is how much of her backstory and all that has been just a PR, maybe not stunt, but basically like a fake background. I am not certain on that because there's a lot of stuff in her like Wikipedia entry and all that sort of thing that do not match the stupidity that comes out of her mouth. She was some bartender in Queens, and she sounds like a bartender in Queens, and yet you look at her at a bachelor's degree and in economics and foreign policy. I think there's a minor in economics, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm like, how do you get those sorts of things and still be that fundamentally retarded in those areas? I would expect that she had to at least get some of the right answers on the test. I know the college, we talked about that in the past, where the college degrees are no longer what they used to be. But in order to get a bachelor's degree, you have to at least get some of the right answers, right? Or do they just pass people through regardless? Like, hey, you answered every question on this economic test wrong, but we're still going to let you. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that, because we had a discussion with one of the guys in my class, and he had a professor that actually made that as one of the criteria. If you get every question right on the test, then you get a 100. If you get every single question wrong on a multiple choice test, you also get a 100. And that's because, so statistically, it's impossible to get a 0 score on a multiple choice question or multiple choice test. The logic behind that is you're going to, if you don't know the answer and you're just randomly guessing, you're going to get, I think it's 30 to 40% right. If you just guess C's on everything, you're going to get at least a 40%. That's why they say if you don't know the answer, just guess a C sort of thing. That's a general testing strategy, because hey, you got a 40% chance of that being the correct answer. It's not a 25% chance like you would kind of assume if it's like multiple choice, A, B, C, D. For some reason, C is more commonly the answer than all the others. I don't know quite why that works out on randomized testing, but it just does. But if you are just randomly guessing at every single question, then you're probably going to get a 40 on your test. That's just how it statistically works out. In order to get every single question right, you have to know all the answers. It's likewise, in order to get every single question wrong, you also have to know all the answers, because you have to know that's the correct one, pick any one but that. You can't accidentally guess the correct one. Now, that means if you tried this the other way and you're like, okay, I'm going to try to get every question wrong, and you miss, and you're like, well, that's not the right answer, and so you check that off and you got points for that. Well, that's going to give you a failing score and not a 90 or whatever, a 99. So it would make sense that it seems like that would be easier, but it's not. If you get every single wrong, yeah, that's a side tangent, sorry. But if you,
yeah, I was just about to say that. I think you're kind of,
yeah, but Matt, statistically, if you get every single question wrong, you know the information. You were just being a troll. But for AOC to graduate, she had to at least know some of the information. Because to even get a D, you have to get a 60%. You can't get that by randomly guessing. By randomly guessing, you're going to get about a 40. So she had to at least know some of the information to boost her up to a score where she could actually pass in order to get a bachelor. And she graduated with honors. So that's, to me, again, I don't know what the standard is for that particular school, but it's got to be at least an 80. So she's got to at least know more than half of the material, and yet she comes out on stage and sounds like a blithering idiot on every single topic. Sounds like she's some kind of valley girl who never studies and gets, you know, straight D's and doesn't care because she's going to rely on her looks to get through life. So there's this mismatch between what you see or what you see on paper as to like, oh, hey, but based on her credentials, I would be like, oh, this is actually not, that's actually not a bad candidate for Congress. And that's what I think kind of happened when the Justice Democrats were reviewing people. They saw like some kind of interview video with her that she submitted, and they look on paper and like, oh, yeah, this is actually a really good resume. And then they, you know, decided they picked her for their cause, and then she started running. And then now she's in there and she's an absolute moron. But she's a moron in their pocket. She owes her entire career to them. She's not self-made. She didn't get to where she is because of private donors and, you know, people believing in her campaign. She got there solely because of the Justice Democrats. Without them, her campaign didn't start at all. And here's the other part is she's lied about this. She talked about, because there's a video on the Justice Democrats where she talks about specifically her name being submitted by her brother and her, you know, her entry into this, you know, candidate selection. She wasn't even aware of it, and her brother had submitted her. She didn't think she had any chance of winning, so she didn't bother. She wasn't even considering any kind of political career. And then her brother submitted her name. They chose her. Now, in other interviews, she has specifically stated that she was a bartender, and one of her clients was somebody who's worked on previous campaigns. And she went on a road trip, and after coming back, because she went on a road trip kind of visiting other places, and after coming back, she said, yeah, I've seen what it's like in other places outside of New York. This is bad. Somebody needs to do something. And she had previously worked with the Bernie campaign, according to these interviews, that she had worked on with what's that called? The Social Democrats and their organization. And so she had discussions with this, one of her patrons who had previous experience on campaigns. And she came back from some trip and was like, you know what? That's it. That was the straw that broke my back, that broke the back. I made my decision after, on the road trip that I'm going to run for some kind of political office, and I'm going to change things in this country. And then he's like, oh, I've got experience. Okay, well, we can help you out here. And I know this PR firm in the area, and you can start working with them. And well, actually, so this guy was actually one of the founders of that PR firm. And so he just happens to be one of the patrons. And so that's the official story, is that she came back from a trip, decided to run for political office, had this a fairly regular patron for that particular bar, who's one of the founders of this company that is involved in PR campaigns and marketing campaigns and has worked on political campaigns. And he decided to help her out there, and they had this grassroots organization who went around. And no, all of that's BS. All of that is absolute crap based on her own testimony when she's talking about how she decided to run. If it's so obvious and if this is politics as usual, why is there a need for two separate stories? Because the official story is the one where she's a bartender who came back and is like, okay, you know what? Somebody needs to do something, and if nobody else is going to do it, I'm going to do it. That's the official, that's the narrative that was running when she first announced her campaign and when her video that went viral. Not her doing it all. That was entirely this PR campaign. And if you look at how the PR campaign was getting their funding, it's from these Justice Democrats. The Justice Democrats hired this PR campaign. They built this entire story, this false story about why she decided to run. And then they made a video that went viral of her going to the existing congressman's office and knocking on the door and saying, oh, he won't debate me, and then talking to other people and like, oh, why won't you debate me? I'm here to. That was the first interaction she had ever done as far as her political campaign. There's no record of her doing anything else prior to that. That was a calculated, strategic move to make it look as if she had been trying to contact him and he'd been ignoring her, even though she was his only real competition, because that particular district was Democrat. It's been Democrat for forever. It's not even close. If you look at the amount of funding, the existing Democrat had about $2 million in his funding for his campaign for that Senate position, or sorry, representative position. Sorry, it's the House of Representatives, not Senate. That House of Representative position had about $2 million raised through the year or whatever, and had previous campaigns and all that sort of thing. The Democrat in that district, $1,000. Actually, it might be $8,000 by the time the campaign was ended. You're talking about somebody with $2 million versus $8,000. But yeah, it's not even the Republicans aren't even trying in that district. It's such a lost cause. So all she had to do was win the Democrat position, become the primary candidate in the Democrat. They win. It's a little initiative from the Justice Democrats. They sink a couple, $2 million of their budget into this one district in the hopes that they oust the existing Democrat. And if they win, it's a reasonable bet that they could possibly win, because nobody even knows who the other guy is. They had a video that went viral by design of her saying, "Oh, he won't debate me," and all that sort of thing. And even when people like, dude, this is completely stupid, all those people who were talking about how ludicrous it was were helping perpetuate that system, because everybody else started spreading it around, and almost overnight or within that week, everybody knew who Ocasio-Cortez was. It didn't matter that she was a blithering idiot, because people had the right name recognition. I still don't know who the Democrat was. I just looked this up earlier today, and I don't know this guy's name. I can't remember it. He's forgetting.
I know last name.
Yeah.
It's like Mark Crowley, something like that.
Crowley.
Crowley
or Crowley. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Yeah. I looked this up earlier today, and I'm like, it's as soon as you stop looking at it, you forget what it is.
Well, that was their tactic. So
yeah.
The sources you found are showing that it wasn't just her.
No.
The Justice Democrats went and polled or took auditions for hundreds of people.
Yeah.
And I think they were trying to basically overpower the current Democrat incumbent.
Yeah, that is entirely. So this is, if you listen to Cenk Uygur when he's talking about the Justice Democrats and why he started it, that's the entire purpose of it, is to replace existing Democrats. So he says he doesn't agree with existing Democrats. His purpose is not to win elections from Republicans or anything like that. He's going to put his candidates, people that believe as he believes. So he started this organization, the Justice Democrats, with the sole purpose of replacing incumbent Democrats with people who believe the way Cenk Uygur believes, which means that they encourage socialism. They want lefty, insane stuff like, oh, yeah, free healthcare and free college tuition and free everything. But that's what Cenk Uygur wants, because Cenk Uygur gets money handed him whether his program succeeds or not. Al Jazeera bankrolls them millions of dollars a year, and their organization, their channel, is losing to Crowder, Steven Crowder, Louder with Crowder. I've talked about that previously on the stream, but I'm a pretty big fan of Steven Crowder. He's now bigger than the Young Turks. He started off with a channel that was a couple thousand people. Like, I think I started watching when he had like 15,000 or something around there. And over the years, now he's got his own thing. He's got Mug Club with Blaze TV. His staff is on par with the Young Turks, and he's not operating on a budget of millions of dollars a year. Based on subscription and the number of people watching his channel, and just kind of not snowballing, but kind of guesstimating at how much they're pulling in per year, you're talking about like $500,000 at most to run that organization. It's whereas the Young Turks get, as far as I know, it's like 20 million a year or something stupid, ridiculous like that. I don't know if that's because last I saw it was something about 26 million, but I don't know if that was annual period. But yeah, it's several $1 million a year.
So I guess the question would be, if the Justice Democrats were the ones going out and holding these auditions, basically they're looking for someone that is already left-leaning, already kind of has a positive view on socialism, thinks it's a good thing, and that is somewhat charismatic, something that people can get behind and say, hey, you know, nice young face trying to get into politics. They've got some crazy ideas, but sounds like it could work. They're trying to push things forward. So is it that they just wanted to support these newer young Democrats? And I'll put that in quotes because they call themselves
Justice Democrat. So it wasn't
Democrats
from what I
socialists. Technically, it's a whole new party. It's not even Democrats. Old Democrats.
The Democratic Socialist is something separate. The Justice Democrats is specifically the one that is bankrolled by the Young Turks.
No, I'm thinking about their label, the ideology, because Bernie Sanders.
So Bernie Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez are part of the Democratic Socialists.
Technically, it's a new party, and what they're trying to do is uproot the old Democrat Party, keep the name because everyone knows Democrats.
And a lot of people vote blindly based on the blue or red, right? Hey, there's a D behind the name, support it. If there's a red, there's an R next to that name, support it.
So if they can take over the Democratic Party, overrun it, kick out the old guard, start putting all these radical policies forward, but everyone knows who they are simply because their face has been in the news. It doesn't matter if they said something stupid. People will just say, hey, I'll vote for her. She's in the news, and it's Democrat.
And okay, if it was just that, I would agree with Andrew Klavan and be like, oh, this is just politics as usual. This is just the Democratic Party being overrun by, it's similar to like the Tea Party movement, right? It's like the Tea Party movement was something completely separate from the Republican, and yet their kind of goal was to get their candidates in to replace existing Republicans, because they like, oh, the existing Republican Party is neocons and bunch of people who say that they're Republican and they're Republicans in name only, and they pass these policies that are actually against conservative values. So their idea was, okay, the big difference is the Tea Party movement was entirely organic. It was people like, okay, this is something that I believe in. Nobody else is doing this. I'm actually going to run. I'm going to put my name in the hat. And they had a bunch of candidates coming in, and people were being elected into those positions entirely based on their policies. And if you look at their campaigns, they are winning these seats with budgets that are in, you're talking about like David and Goliath types things. Like, oh, the other guy has $16 million in his campaign budget, and we were able to win with our $2 million that was raised through crowdsourcing efforts. Now, Ocasio-Cortez, her campaign claims that it's crowdsourcing, but the majority of their funding came from single donors. Is from what I could see, over 700,000 came from a single CPAC, and then they had another donation of 500,000. So right there, they've got 1.2 million coming from two organizations. That just to start the campaign. Once the campaign was going, probably they built up some kind of financing from other people crowdsourcing, other people who were just like, oh, I saw your viral video and I threw in my campaign contribution. I'm like, she got over $500,000 just for throwing her name in the ring. That doesn't happen. That corporations and CPACs don't throw their weight behind somebody until they have the momentum first. And yet with the AOC campaign, it seemed to be the reverse. So if you look again, going back to the Tea Party, that's what the Justice Democrats are kind of mimicking, although the Justice Democrats are front-loading all of this. It's not grassroots movements of people who are pissed off at the existing party. It's people who are already in positions of influence and power, funding and saying, okay, let's go and pick somebody, and that's going to be the person we're going to push into everybody's face. We're going to have them, like the Young Turks already gave AOC a platform on their channel. Why would they do that to some nobody upstart? Oh, it's because she was their candidate. So she had a viral video, and I guess you could kind of say, oh, well, it's because she was already somewhat famous based on that viral video. It's hard to say one way or the other. But they also had Ilhan Omar was one of the people who showed up on the Young Turks when she was a relative nobody. It's like, oh, just this Muslim lady who's running. Okay, who is she? She didn't have a viral video in the same way Ocasio-Cortez did, but she got the media attention that an unknown wouldn't normally get. Usually, when you're running a campaign, even for something as small as like mayor or governor's not really exactly small, but smaller than the Senate or the House of Representatives. That campaign, if you're just throwing your name out there and you're going around knocking door to door and trying to get people to aware of you, usually you don't get a seat at some kind of major network or something that has millions of viewers, or or some kind of embedded audience behind it, until you start to get the grassroots movement traction. This is the opposite. And what that tells me is that right now, these politicians who are in place solely because the the Justice Democrats bankrolled their entire campaign and pushed them and had media consultants and PR consultants guiding every step of their campaign. And even those same people who were part of their campaign are now a part of their cabinets, the people who they surround themselves with, who consult them on a regular basis. These people are building their policies and saying, okay, when this vote comes up, this is how you're going to vote. It would be one thing for these groups to get these people in power and then be like, okay, all right, now you're on your own, go and vote as you please, or vote how you feel based on your conscience or based on your political values. That's not, from what I can tell, that's not the case. These people are saying, you're going to vote this way, and she doesn't know enough because she's a puppet. She's just kind of a placeholder. What this does, so if Cenk Uygur actually wanted to do, so this is something Mr. Reagan brings up in his video, if Cenk Uygur wanted to actually change things, what he would do with his audience and his platform, his popularity amongst leftists, is he would actually be the one running for a political office, getting that political office, and then voting the way he wants. But instead, he's bankrolling other politicians, and so rather than it being him being one person inside of Congress voting the way he wants, he now gets multiple people that are all going to vote the way that he wants. If he's basically copying his political platform and installing multiple people in those positions that are going to vote the way he wants. Which, that right there, that's money in politics. And yet Cenk Uygur is on his, oh, we need to get money out of politics. I'm like, you right now are like, money in politics. When I hear that, I'm thinking Citizens United is what most a bunch of idiots bring up, and I'm like, no. Citizens United is people getting together, pooling their resources, and using that money towards a political effort. That's not the problem, because you can do that. That's perfectly legal within our system. It makes sense. It doesn't make sense to punish people simply because they pool their resources, because they could all make those individual campaigns as individuals. Okay, so when you put it together, for some reason that becomes illegal. That's nonsense.
Well,
but
I mean,
money outside
politics that's known just to be corporate lobbyists, basically.
Yes,
trying to purchase a politician.
Yes,
which is why political funds and APACs and stuff, they have to be open. They have to be visible so people know where the money's coming from, who's funding these senators, these representatives, government officials. What Cenk is doing is actually not, it's beyond being lobbyist. He is purchasing multiple seats in the House. And
that's why I disagree with Andy Clavin on this, because I don't, that is not politics as usual. Yeah, he's basically purchasing multiple votes in the Senate. Now, when you're talking about lobbying a politician, that politician is already established, and the lobbyist will try to influence that politician to vote one way or the other. Now, that politician may be influenced by the money that somebody gives them. Politicians are corruptible. But the difference here is that would be something on their choice. Like a lobbyist could give a politician hundreds of millions of dollars, and if that politician says no, I'm not going to vote that way no matter how much you give me, they can give him $100 million, and he would be like, oh, by the way, that policy where you wanted me to vote yes and you gave me $100 million to do so, I voted no because you. The politician has no obligation to vote in the way that a lobbyist wants. The lobbyist can give them steak dinners, and I mean, granted, I say can. Legally, this is not allowable. Although behind closed doors, everybody knows what's going on. Everybody knows politicians are getting their pocket stuffed by some lobbyist. But there is no contract. It's not like if a senator or a representative votes away or gets some kind of kickback from a lobbyist, and they vote in a way that is counter to what the lobbyist wants. It's not like the lobbyist can do anything about it. The lobbyist can't be like, hey, that's it, I'm calling the authorities. I gave you $1 million to vote yes, and you voted no. No, the lobbyist has no legal recourse for this, because what they were doing was trying to bribe a politician, and that's illegal. They were just doing it behind closed doors and hoping that the politician would vote their way. Now, with Ocasio-Cortez, I would say it's different, because her entire policy is designed by these social democrats, or these Justice Democrats. Man, too many Democrats to keep track of. Yeah, the Justice Democrats designed the entire policy, built the entire plan, and they're the ones coaching her on how to vote all the time. She's not independent of them. She's entirely dependent on them. There is no her without them.
I would say one of the main differences is with the lobbyist groups. Yeah, they shouldn't really be doing that technically if they are found offering a bribe or it being taken as a bribe. That's illegal. There are repercussions to that. But people still know there are lobbyists out there, and they just happen to be friends of these politicians. But those lobbyists will still have to go out and talk to each individual politician, try and secure a particular vote on a bill or push a certain policy for every single one of these politicians that they want to, quote unquote, have in their pocket. But it's a major effort, and the politicians don't have to necessarily agree with it or go along with it. So if a certain policy comes up that is just devastating, that is obviously nobody in their right mind would vote yes on this, they are going to be more worried about their constituents. And if they
at least they should be.
Then if they vote yes, they know they are not going to get reelected.
Yeah.
However, in this circumstance, if they have a group of people that are all voting on the same, and they are in these districts where nobody even bothers to vote, then who cares what they vote on? They are basically purchasing voting power that is secured and cannot go astray.
Yeah, because that's
trying to make up their mind, no one using judgment and saying, this doesn't really sound quite right. I don't think I'm going to vote yes. They are all just going to be voting in unison, which means one entity, one governing body, this Justice Democrats, are now dictating multiple seats within the Democratic vote. So in that way, it's a lot more dangerous because they are operating in unison under somebody's command.
Yeah.
That's quite a bit different than even just the messed up world of corporate lobbying.
Yeah, that's an excellent point I hadn't considered. But so the other thing is lobbyists have a separation between what lobbyists can do and where they can actually be. Like if you're a lobbyist and you have known ties to a corporation, you cannot be a part of a cabinet for a sitting member of Congress. And yet these Justice Democrats, the people that were helping or coaching AOC during her campaign, the people that were coaching Omar during her campaign, they are now members of those cabinets. But they had their funding from the Young Turks. So they're lobbyists, but they're not lobbyists. They're lobbyists who get to be in the hen house. They're wolves who get to be allowed in the hen house. Like lobbyists, people who are actually labeled lobbyists, they come out and say, yeah, I'm a wolf. But these people basically put on sheep's clothing. Or I guess maybe I'm mixing metaphors. Wolf in the hen house versus it's fox in the hen house, isn't it? Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wolf in sheep's clothing and fox in the hen house.
Yeah.
Nobody puts in sheep's clothing.
Yeah, I mixed the metaphors. My mistake. So, okay. Yeah. Okay, I guess maybe the same analogy. Like everybody knows the lobbyists are lobbyists. They're outright blatant about what they're doing. They go to the they knock on senators' doors, whatever. People know, okay, you're a lobbyist for X corporation or whatever that. But these Justice Democrats are basically, yeah, they are the fox that has snuck into the hen house, and they're in there, and nobody knows. They're hidden. I'm trying to. There's got to be a better way to analogize that. It is. Yeah, they put on sheep's clothing and they're walking around, I guess, amongst the sheep, snapping and eating sheep, and nobody's noticing it because they look like a sheep to the rest of the people. I guess that's a better way of analogizing. Shouldn't have tried the metaphor. My bad. But you get the principle is the lobbyists have to declare they're a lobbyist and say, hey, yeah, this is what I do. This is my job. I get paid by X corporation to come in here and try to convince you to vote in a way that would benefit them.
Well, they've also
Democrats don't have that requirement.
They also have certain
just there in her cabinet
that they have to follow.
Yeah, granted, like I said before, they could do behind closed doors meetings. They could get away with it. But if somebody catches them, they go to jail. There's strict rules on this. If somebody catches them in the act of something that's illegal, the Justice Democrats, they're out in the open. I mean, as far as they're saying, yeah, I was part of this Justice Democrat and I was part of her campaign and now I'm in her cabinet.
Well,
that's not illegal.
Because a lobbyist would be on behalf of a corporation. The Justice Democrats are just a political organization.
Yeah. But yet they effectively act in the same way that a lobbyist would. Except they have hands-on control in what's going on. The lobbyist is basically like rolling the dice. The lobbyist is betting on a long shot. Okay, I'm betting that if I give this guy this much money, it'll pay off, and then my business gets, or the company that pays me ends up making billions off of the deal, and it only costs them a couple million to get this passed. The Justice Democrats, they've got their hands on the levers, so it's not a gamble. There is no risk reward; it's all reward. They always get a vote going the way they want it, and it doesn't cost them this huge risk of, oh, well, we're going to try to get this politician in our pocket, and we spent a couple million, didn't quite work. It's like, no, they spent a couple million and they got the exact politician they want, who's going to vote the way they want. And that second that politician ever steps out of line, well, then they pick somebody else. They go and have auditions for, okay, well, all right, have fun in we're going to cut you off. And then we're going to go and pick a new candidate, and we're going to get them to replace you. And we're going to replace you the same way we replaced the person you replaced. That's kind of the system. It gives that group multiple votes in the Senate, which, yeah, like you were saying, that kind of allows them to vote on ridiculous things, or even propose ridiculous things.
Like the Green New Deal.
Yeah. As ridiculous as that is, if other people start signing on to it, and then people are like, well, okay, this is not just one crazy person. Other people are voting on this. Maybe this is something, and then the rest of the Democrats go and jump on board.
We can already see that because I'm thinking Kamala Harris, what's his name, Mr. Potato Head?
Cory Booker.
Yeah. And Pocahontas,
Warren.
Yeah, I don't think they're in with, say, the Democratic Socialist group per se. I think they're still along the lines of just very left-leaning regular Democrats.
Yeah,
but I think they're trying to hop on the bandwagon because they already see momentum behind this group, and so they're kind of the stragglers hopping on basically hopping on the train to catch a ride, saying, "Hey, maybe we can hitch a ride, see if this will coast us somewhere."
Yeah, and that so I know Omar and AOC are parts of are specifically in the pockets of the Democratic Socialists. I don't know how many other politicians
Well,
are in
these
there.
are all the new ones. This is a new
Yeah,
group. So this would be all the young. That's why there are so many first timer
yeah.
House reps from the Democrat side. They had, I don't know, 20 something first time runners for the primaries in the various districts that they tried, which was a massive push. That hasn't been done before.
Yeah, and if you think the majority
Usually,
of them are all
or they've done something and have slowly built up a career. They've had something to do with politics throughout their life. These people just popped out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere, yeah. Bartender to congressperson. What? Not like usually there's a lawyer, mayor, governor, like some other type of position. Something, was the treasurer or was
they ran for this
like
council, some sort of governmental position.
Yeah,
everyone has to work themselves up unless they're born into a political family, kind of like George W.
But even he was governor, wasn't he?
I believe so.
Yeah.
So that does give them a benefit to get that early start in a career in politics.
Yeah.
But they
so a lot of the sitting senators and things like that.
Somewhere.
Yeah. Prior to this most recent midterms, a lot of the people who were in Congress were either came from a mayoral position, were a senator in their local state, or some kind of congressperson from their local state, were some kind of governor, were a prominent lawyer that because that was Obama, right? He was a prominent lawyer in his area and was a city planner or whatever.
No, I think even Clinton started off as a lawyer.
Yeah. But no, Clinton became governor of Arkansas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even the Clintons had to start somewhere.
Yeah. And so it was their name was well known, and they had money of their own. Yeah, they had to start a campaign. So lawyers make a lot of money. You would expect lawyers and doctors, people who business owners and all this sort of things, to be able to finance their own campaign. A bartender who's making what, minimum wage, maybe $15 an hour or something like that. Not a whole lot of money to start your own political campaign off of that. That's very difficult to start a grassroots movement. A lot of politicians came from money, and yet for some reason in this most recent midterms, we've got a lot of people who come from nothing, have no political careers behind them, have no way of making their name known, and yet for some reason they are now in Congress. That's weird. So I would say anybody who fits that stereotype. What's the word I'm looking for? Fits that profile. There's a good word.
Yeah.
Anybody who fits that profile, probably in the pockets of these the Justice Democrats. And I would also say there's another thing to look into, which I guess I'll have to spend a couple of weeks looking into that. What are their voting patterns? Are all of those new Congress people who have no history of being involved anywhere with any kind of politics? Are they all voting along the same lines? I'm pretty sure they are, which means
at least from what I've heard so far, yes. I think the only AOC is sometimes steps in line with her comments, and then usually when she
no matter if the votes are all the same, they can go
just sounding ludicrous and retarded, and then Ilhan keeps letting out anti-Semitic remarks.
Yeah,
I mean, how do you get warned 3 times in 6 weeks?
Well, in part of her apology, she makes another.
Yeah.
In part of her apology,
what I'm saying is that King guy got let go for.
Was that? That wasn't an apology. It was like a backhanded apology.
What was that guy?
You doubled down on
first name. That Republican guy, the King guy. One anti-Semitic remark, and he had to resign.
Oh, dude. No, so Steve King was he was at that Phyllis Schlafly thing I went to in St. Louis. Dude, like I heard him speak, I was like, wow, this guy, I never heard of this guy. This guy's awesome. He was, I heard him speak a couple of times. He was there for multiple events. I was like, dude, this guy actually knows what he's talking about. This guy is really well informed. I'm surprised to see this from a politician. So I was like, oh, dude. And he was talking about instituting a heartbeat bill. And in his coming from he is saying as soon as Kavanaugh was confirmed, he wanted to start initiatives to have a federal heartbeat bill. That means, so unfortunately, we kind of had the reverse of that in Virginia and New York, but he wants wanted a federal heartbeat bill, which means as long as you can detect a heartbeat, that's protected under the U.S. Constitution. That's the plan that they had in place. I think that has derailed it because he's now not a member of any committee. Is he still in? Did he lose his seat?
That's what I thought. I thought he had to step down.
Okay, then yeah, that's so. He had to step down. It was an innocuous little statement too, if I'm not mistaken. It was something that wasn't. I was like,
well,
really?
I mean, I don't know. I forgot the statement, so it did sound somewhat anti-Semitic, but I don't think he has a long history of that. Like he's not making multiple comments, and they finally just said, you know what, we've had it. It's been 5 years of this, and you keep saying all this stuff. We can't have that in our politics. From my understanding, it was one comment, and then they asked him to resign.
Yeah.
Ilhan's been reprimanded 3 times. Well, verbally scolded 3 times, and asked to apologize, of which it wasn't even really an apology.
No. I'm sorry that you guys felt hurt.
Yes.
Not sorry for the comments. I won't make those comments. It's like, I'm sorry that you guys got butthurt, which is not an apology.
Yep. I go 3 times, and that's less than 2 months, just a month and a half.
Yeah.
And she's brand new, just like AOC. And there's 2 other women? I don't remember if there was another guy that's also part of the Justice Democrats, kind of new recruits.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think that Mr. Reagan pointed out 5 names.
Oh, did he?
Or maybe that was
the only one that it might have been somebody else, because I only remember him mentioning 2 in his specific video. Sargon didn't confirm anybody other than AOC. Andrew Clavin, I didn't hear that whole thing, so he might have gone into other names. But
yeah, it could have been another video I watched. But this guy was saying that there was a group of 5.
Yeah, which
and they're not the prospective ones. That's out of the 7 new Democrat House reps that got elected. 5 were the Justice Democrats.
And if you see if incumbent like Warren and Booker and them that are just kind of like glory hounds, if they see a trend of like, oh hey, this has only been out for a day and already we've got 5 people voting on this or supporting this. All right, this seems to be the thing to jump on. They will jump on.
They don't stand a chance. This new wave that is funded and kind of in unison, very heavily pushing socialistic ideas. Booker and Warren and Harris, all of them, they're just hopping on the bandwagon of the Green New Deal to try and seem like, hey, we're down for progress. You know, we're progressive, just like you.
Yeah, we're hip, we're cool.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, let me open a beer. You want a beer? That whole stupid thing. I mean, they're all very cringy because you can tell they're older people trying too hard to relate to.
Yeah.
The
thing about that Warren video,
since they're not actual socialists, they will not be backed. Because
that cringy video was trying to mimic AOC.
Yes.
Because AOC has been getting more popular with her stupid, in hotel streams and all that sort of thing. Not
drinking a glass of wine or whatever.
So Warren was copying that. She's like, "Oh, okay, that's what's popular with kids these days. Let's do that."
Be a vlogger. That doesn't.
Yeah.
I think that kind of needs to stop.
It's almost like she's like, "Oh, hey, this is what the new fresh Democrats want." But if you look at AOC, got her seat by 3,000 votes. Not 14,000 total, but she won by 3,000 over the incumbent guy.
Oh yeah,
it's not this huge grassroots movement of Democrats who want people like AOC.
They targeted a lazy Democrat who felt he didn't have to campaign or do anything because he's been sitting there for 20 years, and they said we're going to swipe this.
So, but the amount of people that have fully supported AOC and what she stands for is relatively small, even in the Democratic Party. And yet people like Elizabeth Warren look at AOC and be like, okay, this is the one that all the Democrats are supporting. And I'm like, if you look at the polls and what people say when you're talking about socialism and all these leftist policies, leftists are more moderate than that, or Democrats are more moderate than what you guys are all pitching as your policy. So I'm not sure. Like, there's this huge disconnect.
They're the one getting the attention. They can make claims that because this is all you're seeing in the media, that this is what most of America wants, but it's not true at all.
Yeah,
I think most Democrats are still classic Democrats. They just don't know where to vote because they don't want to vote Republican, but the current Democrats have gone too far to the left.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people who were hardcore Democrats who were like, this is too much. I'm jumping sides. This is why the whole walk away movement is actually building up speed, because those were the middle of the road Democrats who are like, okay, if that's the popular side, I want nothing to do with it. So this is why Candace Owens is seeing some gaining traction with her Blexit movement. Although Blexit, whatever. It is what it is. But so there's several different movements within the walkaway. Blexit is a subsection of the walkaway that is specifically targeted at Black Democrats, getting them to like, dude, open up your eyes, wake up. The Democrats do not have your best interest at heart. Maybe the Republicans don't either, but couldn't be worse, right? And there's also an LGBT similar movement that is kind of part of the walkaway. I don't know the exact name of that group, but it's basically reaching out to the LGBT community and being like, yeah, the Democrats are out of their minds. Doesn't matter. You get the, switch sides, vote differently.
The younger generation. The whole LGBT thing starting to crumble apart because their platform was hijacked. It used to just be LGB. That was it. Or LGBT initially T got kind of slapped on, but they still kind of,
and then they've just been slapping on acronyms ever since.
Yep. But their entire platform got hijacked by this non-binary genderism, whatever movement going on. And they're extremely tribal, extremely hive-minded. You either no longer do what they say, you contest 1 point, and you're now kicked out.
Mm-hmm.
And they will treat you very badly because you are now no longer following their doctrine, their ideology, their dogma.
Yeah. So we've got a situation where incumbent Congress is looking to these fresh new faces as the new leadership, as the direction the Democrats should go. And then you've got moderate actual Democrat, like the majority of the Democratic voters who are looking at this. They don't know quite what to do. But anytime they step out of line, they get ostracized and they get shunned by the vocal minority, because it is still the minority of people on the left who are those crazy screeching people.
So
the moderate Democrats are looking at them like, okay, I guess they are the majority. And people like Elizabeth Warren are looking at it like, okay, I guess they're the majority. Just weird.
So here's the way I kind of see things panning out. I think the Democratic Party is just straight up going to be hijacked. In the next couple of years, that the democratic socialist idea is going to be the norm for that party. All of your more centrist leaning or classic liberal Democrats are, I would guess they're going to split off and start like a new neoliberal party, something like that. Because they don't necessarily have conservative views, but they're definitely not on the cuckoo train.
I would actually hope that is the case, because that's good news in 2020 for conservatives.
I think this Democrat socialist stuff, it's very catchy in the coastal major cities.
Yes.
So Los Angeles, Seattle, Washington, D.C., New York City, those have the louder voices and higher percentage of these democratic socialist groups.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the parties are going to remain, which is fine. And if there is some sort of new neoliberal party that pops up, we're no longer a two-party electorate place, and that's good. That's actually
I would love to see
more ideas, more people voting on policy, not just these faces they're seeing, whatever. But that will only still continue to function if the Electoral College stays in place, because that is what gives the rest of the country power to subvert or to hold back these major cities if they all become in line and in unison, which they have been for decades now.
Yeah.
That's what gives middle country.
Which is exactly why these new Democrats are trying, or put in, you know, like, hey, let's get rid of the Electoral College, because that's the only thing stopping us from controlling
ideas.
Yeah.
That is the game plan.
Okay. So there is something in the comments that's actually relevant to the conversation. There's this other guy who's still just spouting nonsense, but Brandon Paget says AOC got told off by the CEO of Wells Fargo. Did you see that? Oh, dude, it's so cringy and funny. Okay, so AOC is asking questions of the CEO of Wells Fargo. She asks him if a pipeline, what's the name of that thing? The something pipeline. What's the Keystone Pipeline. Yeah. So the Keystone Pipeline, she asks if that springs a leak, could we hold Wells Fargo responsible because you financed or you gave the loan to the company that built the Keystone Pipeline? He's like, no, because we're not responsible for that. We didn't build it. We don't maintain it. We just gave the company money. We're a bank.
Do you hold the banks liable if your plumbing breaks in your house? No, you call if it's warranty, then it's the plumber who initially put it together is liable.
Yeah, dude. I'm like, wait, did you seriously just ask that?
Because you had a plumbing leak.
Dude, okay, if banks were liable for that sort of thing, you would have no banks.
They wouldn't exist.
Oh yeah, like wait, if I loan somebody money and they use
a reward for the risk.
Oh no, you get nothing. You're like, no. All banks would close down. You would end the banking completely.
In fact, that's why warranties only last for so many years.
Yeah.
Things happen and people can't be held liable for life, especially when they are not the ones who did the work.
Yeah. It's like, oh, so I mean, like imagine if that was still the case. Like, oh, hey, my bank is on the line for my house. I'm going to go and set it on fire. And now the bank's responsible for any damage that fire causes to the neighborhood. Ha ha, in your face.
Yeah. Bought a new car, got it financed, someone rear-end you. Is that the bank's fault? Are they liable?
Well, yeah, the bank financed that person to give them their car.
They might have even financed the other person.
Yeah, at that point, there's no end to how many people you could go back holding them responsible. Yeah, so AOC is a complete moron, and it's
now that mentality. You can see that in other areas of discussion because they're also wanting to put in reparations. That's in the Green New Deal, that reparation statement. How far back do you need to look before reparations are done? There were people here before the Native Americans were here. Historically, the Native Americans came from Asia.
Yeah.
They crossed the Bering Strait. Who was here before that? If there was anybody here, they weren't the first people. We don't know. They've been fighting themselves for thousands of years, so we don't even know which tribe was here first. There is no reparations for Native Americans. They were already fighting themselves. Now, there was a lot of travesty, bad things done, and I understand, that's a dark part of history. But some Native Americans actually partnered up with the U.S. to go fight the other tribes that they were
fight other tribes, like tribes that were more violent. I mean, as the Apaches were, like if you're looking at tribes in history, like the Apaches were absolutely vicious. When you look at Indian history, like the number of tribes that actually would scalp people and stuff like that, very small comparatively. The Apaches were one of the ones who did that as just like, hey, just pure intimidation tactics.
Yeah, they were trying to be a dominant tribe.
Yeah,
didn't want other people to mess with them, so leave us alone, or we'll scalp you.
I mean, we did end up taking up tactics from them and that sort of stuff. But so there were some tribes who were like, hey, we just want to be left alone, leave us in peace. But the Apaches were a warlike tribe.
This is the mentality where you need to trace all the way back to the very beginning, and everybody in that whole line is accountable and responsible, which is ridiculous. That doesn't make sense. No. But that's the same mentality of why she would think a bank would be held liable if the Keystone Pipeline sprung a leak.
Yeah, and the other thing is well, why isn't that
they would just shut it off?
The other thing with Stefan Monaluke talked about with reparations, he's like, yeah, there's millions of white people who were also enslaved. What was that called? Oh,
those pirates in the Mediterranean.
Yeah, the pirates. Dang it, what's the name of it? The
Barbarous.
Yeah. Sorry, the Barbers.
Barbary pirates. That's them. Yeah,
Sorry,
over
what?
1 million. The Barbary pirates.
Oh, Barbary. Yeah, Barbary pirates.
Over 1 million Europeans.
Yeah.
Within 300 years.
I couldn't remember the name, but
1 million.
Yeah, and that was just during that one particular time. There's other instances. So the numbers that he's been citing is somewhere close to 3 million total.
Yeah, that was that was the last stretch before Jefferson and Ben Franklin and some of the European countries started fighting back against the Barbary pirates, which that's not even really taught.
Yep. So it was around the same time. Similar time frame as when the American slave epidemic was going on.
Direct hand in it,
it's like
there are no reparations. Just from here on, let's keep things equal so everyone has the same opportunity, and that should be enough reparations for anybody to build up a life in Western civilization. You have an opportunity to get an education. You have an opportunity to go work, whatever job you want, to go educate yourself and build your skill set in whatever area, to go follow your dreams. Everybody has that same opportunity. There's no need for reparations.
Okay, and I'm going to start to wrap this up, and something you just said there triggered something in my mind. And so this is something I've said before, is two wrongs don't make a right, they make a leftist. And this is exactly what you're looking at when you're looking at the situation with AOC and with the reparations and all this, is this seems to be the typical pattern that they follow, is they see something wrong, and rather than fighting against that wrong and making it equal for everybody, they see that wrong and we're like, okay, well, we're going to stop you guys from doing that wrong, and then we're going to do that wrong in order to make it even.
Well, the problem they have is they're not actually seeing a wrong. Inequity.
Well, no, they see it's a wrong, but they see it's a wrong only when you do it. It's
financial
only wrong
differences. So having rich people and having poor people, that is not a wrong. That's simply the way the world operates. Some people have good luck. Some people are just very educated and know exactly how to make their money.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah. But they so when they're talking about something like that, they're saying, oh, we need to get money out of politics. This is something Cenk Uygur has said repeatedly. And yet what is he doing?
He's dumping money right in.
Yeah, he's putting money in order to have puppet politicians in his pocket. That is exactly what he says he's fighting against. So it's like, oh, no, it's only wrong when corporations do it. I've got the right motives. I'm doing it for the right reasons, so it's okay. It's the same reason, like, okay, oh, well, when white people had slaves, oh, that was racist. It's like, well, what about the Barbary slaves? Oh, no, that's
that was just custom. That's the way life was back then.
Yeah, that's just how things were. It's like, and it's always when you do something that is racist, right? So there's like white people get called, blamed for racism, and it's all white people. It's like, and yet when you see like, wait, isn't what you just said something that's racist? And like, oh, no, that's because you got power and you got influence. Like, wait, if something's racist, nobody does it. How about we just agree that this thing is racist and then nobody gets to do it? There, we're good. How about this is a terrible thing, nobody gets to do it? It's not oh, well, slavery was bad when you guys did it, but if we were to do it, not so bad. Getting money in politics and buying politicians, it's bad, but it's only bad when your side does it. When our side does it, it's fine. That's the two wrongs don't make a right. It's you guys did it and it was wrong, so we're going to do it to make things right. And you're like, that's not how things work. If something's wrong, nobody do it. How about everybody stop it?
Just fix it.
Yes, that will fix the situation where nobody's allowed to do that wrong thing, and we can have a better society that way. But they don't think in terms like that. They think, oh, something wrong was done to us, or somebody was using this system and they were abusing it, and therefore to balance the scale, we have to use the system and abuse it. That's always the mentality that keeps coming back over and over. That's why two wrongs make a leftist, because they're like, oh, you did something wrong, now I'm going to do something wrong. I'm like, but that makes everything worse. It doesn't make everything better. the only way to make everything better is identifying something as wrong and then banning that, or making people aware of that it's wrong, so that way they stop doing it themselves. Let's see. So I think that's kind of where I want to wrap this up, unless you got some other kind of point or anything else to add.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this is something we're just going to have to keep an eye on, because on the next batch of electorates, we need to see, are there more Justice Democrat electorate?
Yeah, and I know I just said something about we're going to wrap this up, but something you just said triggered something. So Mike Cernovich has announced on Twitter that he's legitimately seeking possibly running for president in 2020, which, like, okay, that's like in what you could talk about earlier, possibility of multiple parties running. He's talking about running as an independent, and the what's his name? The wasn't Starbucks, was it? Their CEO was also talking about. Was it Starbucks? Or was it some other billionaire, right? I think it was the Starbucks CEO who's talking about also running as a independent.
Yeah, he is running as an independent.
Yeah.
The former CEO.
So if we're going to see multiple independent, it's possible we could see multiple independents running in 2020, which would be a nice breath of fresh air, considering we've been stuck in this two-party system, this false dichotomy for however many decades. We may actually start to see some people change things, break things up, and hopefully start to shrink the size of this government, but we'll see. Okay, yeah, just keep track of these things. I thought this was relevant information that I was like, wow, this seems to me a step beyond politics is normal. It might just be how the case is and how it's always been, but I think this is one step removed, or one step further into corruption and a possible, if the Justice Democrats get their way, of possibly crippling this entire country and ending us in the same way Venezuela is currently trying to recover from.
Yeah,
but
kind of a stealth coup.
Yeah. All right, but it is about 8:15, and gonna call it a night. So thanks for joining me, and thanks for the people who showed up in the chat. Except for this Daiji guy. I don't know why you're in my chat, and I'm going to leave your messages there, just so you know. I did not ban you or hide any of your stuff. That's just the YouTube's automatic stuff. Because apparently, Dick, I'm guessing, is bannable. And come are things that are automatically hidden unless I show them. And okay, I'm not going to show those particular, but I'm not going to do anything to ban you or kick you out of my chat, because I don't care enough to bother. All right, and I'm going to end it there. Okay, one last bit of news. Starting next week, I am moving to Tuesdays. This is the last week of my training course, so starting next week, I'm going to have my schedule under my own control. I will be able to do Tuesdays without issue. Part of the reason was usually, like the past couple of weeks, there's always been something on Wednesdays that I was like, yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, it's my Tuesday evenings have usually been booked up because I've had to do work and all that sort of thing. But starting next Tuesday, I don't have any work after training, so my evenings are my own again. So I will be moving back to Tuesday starting next week. And that's the last thing I need to announce. And again, thanks everybody for joining me. And for anybody who's watching, it's just interesting stuff to think about. And keep yourself informed and try as much as you can to follow both sides, because apparently I wasn't following the Young Turks enough to notice that they were doing this openly. Who knew? All right. Catch you later.